Hey everyone, welcome to the April 14th edition of Horses to Watch. David Aragona. On the show this week, we're going to take a look at three replays from last Saturday at Oaklawn Park. That was their big race day featuring the Oaklawn Mile and the Oaklawn Stakes. We're going to look at both of those races actually and talk about some horses that didn't get great trips in those two races. But first, let's start off with one of the maiden races that took place earlier in the day on Saturday at Oaklawn Park. That was the seventh race, going 1.16 miles on the dirt course for the 3-year-olds and up. And we'll break them from the start. I want to focus on two horses, the number 1 Pit Boss and the number 9 Totalitarian. Now, Pit Boss was a first-time starter. He breaks a little bit slowly from the inside. And the number 9 is a second-time starter. He had made one prior start going 2 turns at Oaklawn. He also breaks pretty slowly and just has no early speed. That's the number 9 Totalitarian, who drops to the back of the pack. Now, what you want to note as these horses move into the clubhouse turn here, this is a race that featured a pretty honest early pace. I don't think any of the fractions were color-coded red to indicate a particularly fast pace if you look in the Timeform US PPs, but they're definitely moving up front, and it's going to bring some of the closers into the race. Now, I want to focus on the difference in the two trips between that two aforementioned horses, the number 1 Pit Boss and the number 9 Totalitarian, and the different choices that their riders make. Tyler Bays is on the number 1, and he's going to try to save as much ground on Pit Boss as possible, especially as they move into the far turn. And now you see the number 9 Totalitarian towards the back of the pack. He's now up alongside of Pit Boss, and his rider is going to elect to go outside. Walter De La Cruz is on him. As they come around the far turn, the number 9 is going to get the jump on the number 1, and he starts to move up outside of horses, making a big move as this race starts to fall apart up front, like he's going to swoop past this entire field. But watch the decision that the rider of the number 9 makes right here. Instead of going all the way around this field, he's going to try to tuck in a little bit and save ground, I guess, to go in the 3 path instead of the 5 path here, and he's just going to ride the number 9 Totalitarian right into traffic right here. I don't know why he did that. I don't know why he just didn't go around these tiring runners. Instead, he rode him right into the backs of these horses. He loses all his momentum. And while that's happening, you see the number 1 Pit Boss picks up momentum. He's coming up the inside, which was left totally clear, and he comes through along the rail to get second in this race. This horse, this first-time starter, the number 1, he runs pretty well to be second here. He was a firster for Wayne Catalano, a son of Union Rags, a pretty encouraging debut for a horse that had a pretty nice work tap coming into this race. But the horse that I really think you want out of this race is that number 9 Totalitarian, because I think he finished back in 5th or 6th here, and he seemed like a horse that was at least going to be second if he didn't have that trouble at the top of the stretch. I don't know if he would have won the race and beaten Erner, who was a pretty impressive winner, but Totalitarian was definitely cost a higher placing by his rider's just bizarre decision to ride into the backs of those horses at the top of the lane. So he's one that I would look for next time out in a similar spot. If he gets in another race at Oaklawn, that's great, because I think this horse is a big, long-striding son of Tonalist who wants every bit of the 2 turns that he can get in those races down there. Let's move on to those 2 stakes races, and we'll begin with that 1 mile event. That was race 9, the Oaklawn Mile for the older horses. A lot of rain had fallen at Oaklawn Park by the time they ran these 2 stakes races, so I think the track was rated wet fast for this race. Don't think that really affected the competition, but you'll just notice the track looks different just 2 races later on this card. We'll pick it up from the gate, focusing on the number 14, Improbable, who was the ultimate runner-up in this race. Now, Improbable, you see, is breaking from the outside stall. I think there were 12 runners in this race, so he's breaking from post number 12, and Drayden Van Dyke really has to ride him hard coming under the wire the first time to get forward position because he doesn't want to get hung out too wide. And as they head into the clubhouse turn, you see he's about 4 wide. That's as far as he could get over. And the problem with this trip is he's never going to get any closer to the rail than he is here. He's going to be 4 wide all the way around the clubhouse turn, and then again all the way around the far turn. So he's losing significant ground. Furthermore, you see the fractions going up. This is a pretty fast pace. 22 and 4 for the opening quarter, heading right into that turn. That's pretty quick. Some of the pace ratings for this race were color-coded red in Timeform US PPs. And the other horses that are up towards the front in this race, they really finish nowhere. The horses that finish 1st and 3rd, they're in that second flight of runners all the way back about 6 or 7 lengths off the lead. Tom Stata is moving up on the inside in that second flight. He's going to be the winner of this race. And then Bankett, who finishes 3rd, he's even farther back in the early going. And both of those runners saved a lot more ground than Improbable did. And you see here, Improbable is now trying to make this push towards the lead, but he's still racing about 3 to 4 wide on the far turn here, just never saving any ground. And Furthermore, Drayden Van Dyke is being forced to move maybe a little bit sooner than he wanted to, just to get clear of these horses coming to the top of the stretch and try to get over a little bit. As they come into the lane, he is going to drift down towards the rail here, but obviously he's tired after those early exertions, and he just can't quite contain the late run of the heavy favorite Tom Stata, who got a much better trip in this race. Now, Tom Stata, maybe he just is a better horse overall because he's a grade 1 winner. He got that grade 1 in the Clark last year. He's run plenty of speed figures that are a little bit faster than the best numbers that Improbable has run. But Improbable feels like he really got back to his best form here, going back to the 1 mile distance. I think that's really ideal for him. He just didn't quite get to show his how good he is right now because of that wide trip. I think if they stick with some 1 mile races in the near future, this is a horse that can really shine this year with the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile as the ultimate goal in the fall. And let's finish things up with the other stakes race on that Oaklawn card. It was race 11, the Oaklawn Stakes for the 3-year-olds, going 1 1/8 miles. Again, we've got that wet track to deal with and another big field here. And instead of focusing on the outside horse, let's focus on the horse breaking from the rail. That's the number 1 Basin. And we can watch the horses leaving the starting gate here. And Basin breaks okay. He doesn't have any real trouble at the start, but you see Florent Giroux immediately out of the start is really trying to hustle this horse to get early position because there's plenty of speed to his outside. And you see horses start to cross over, so he's going to rein him in a little bit to try to get into that stalking spot in behind horses. Now, typically, this would be a good spot to be in because he's about 5th, about 3 lengths off the lead, but you see the fractions go up, and they are absolutely motoring up front. The first quarter goes up in 22. They go the half in 45 and change. That is just unreasonably fast for the 1 1/8 miles distance. So any horses that are anywhere close to this early pace are just at a significant disadvantage. And when you see the finish of this race, you're going to understand how the race flow really impacted the horses racing up close to the pace because the eventual winner is all the way back in 11th right now, and the eventual runner-up is back in last place. He's 13th early. So Basin, the number 1 here, he's just too close to this early pace, even though he's about 3 lengths off the leader, Gold Street. Now, watch what happens here as they move down the backstretch. The last place that you want to be in races that feature paces that are this fast is right in behind a phalanx of long shot leaders that you know are going to collapse in your face. And that's what happens to Basin right here. As horses start to range up outside, those horses that are getting into the clear on the outside, they're able to gain momentum, but Bass is in here in amongst a bunch of tiring runners. He's got a wall of horses that are backing up in front of him, and Florent Giroux just keeps picking the wrong pass to go through. A horse that even picked the rail spot instead is able to get through, and he just gets shuffled back all the way to about 8th or 9th here. Now, to Basin's credit, once Florent Giroux does get him off the rail and he gets him back out into the clear in the stretch, he starts to re-rally, and he actually closes to get 4th in this race, even after losing all of that momentum coming to the quarter pole. I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say that Basin probably should have won this race because look at the number 8 Tyshawn here who got the jump on him. He's going to fade to finish 3rd here, but Basin's finishing much stronger than him, even though Tyshawn got a better trip, and Tyshawn also got the jump on him coming to the quarter pole. So I think Basin probably would have been right in the mix to win this race at the end. I don't know if he could have gotten it done, but he certainly would have been closer if he had gotten the jump on those horses coming to the top of the stretch and not gotten shuffled back and lost all of that momentum. Basin now is pretty dirtied up because in his return race in the Rebel, he got a pretty similar situation where he just got shuffled back coming to the top of the stretch, had to re-rally over a wet track. Again, it was even more pronounced in this Oaklawn Stakes. I hope that Steve Asmussen runs him back in the Arkansas Derby next time because I don't know if he's quite good enough to win this race. He does have to get faster, but he has not gotten the best setups in his 2 races so far in 2020, and I think he'll have more to offer when he gets a cleaner trip in the Arkansas Derby. So those are all the races this week. Hopefully we can make a score with one of these horses in their subsequent starts. Be back next week with 3 more horses to watch.